So, Tyson, we got the Sunday Night Football Showdown show, and this is really just going to come down to how much Jeff Wilson are we playing, right? First time in a while, we've had a $200 guy that's pretty much slated to get 9+ fantasy points. So,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. How are we going to get different?
Most of the show is just going to be talking about how do we get different, but with playing Jeff Wilson. This is the game of the year potentially to start this season, so I'm loving it, man. Let's do it. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, Dolphins going into Philadelphia. Philadelphia's 3-point favorites here. This is going to be a good one, man. In my opinion, this one has a chance to hit the under in a game like this. Like, you have two obviously incredible teams, potentially the best in the league, a great matchup. You also have two good defenses. So what are your thoughts? I mean, this is a 51.5 point total. What are your thoughts on this game overall? Should we expect a shootout? Or maybe we're going to see like a slower game here with maybe 48 total, like hitting the under. I don't know. What do you think?
So I want to be careful how I phrase this, because every time I say that we're in for what should be an exciting matchup, we end up with some bullshit like the Dallas Chargers game, right? Like I don't know, man. Like even these games that we look forward to, they end up being a wash. But I think this one's different. These are actually two good teams playing. These aren't like two undisciplined teams. These are actually two really, really well-coached teams that are playing. So this should be a fun one. I think it's an interesting matchup because Philly's pass defense isn't as good as we were necessarily expecting it. And, Miami is obviously excellent when it comes to throwing. But I just think like it's going to be a good matchup. I think you're right. It could hit the under, but I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be betting the under at all on a slate like this.
For sure. Yeah, obviously, I think just roster construction wise, if you're trying to build, like, maybe that is a strategy that maybe we're going to see a little bit less points scored, but I'm not betting that's going to happen. So look, we know that Miami's best offense in history almost at this point through 6 games. Yeah. If you look at their schedule, though, they really haven't. They have the 30th ranked strength of schedule coming in so far. So they really haven't played a lot of tough teams. And, the tough team that they did play in Buffalo, they lost that game. They got kind of blown out. And if you look at some of these matchups here, the theme here is most of these games are either at home or in a dome. And the games that they haven't done well offensively have been in New England, have been in Buffalo. Now, the weather is not going to be crazy in Philadelphia. It's going to be 50 degrees. But we know that this team benefits by putting the away team on in the sun, on the away sideline at home. They benefit a lot from that. I don't think that that's going to change things a lot, but it's worth mentioning that they are playing in Philadelphia for this game outdoors. So it's not necessarily exactly what they've been successful this year at. Thoughts on strength of schedule here for Miami? If you look at overall, I mean, look, first overall, according to PFF, first in offense, fifth in defense. This defense is pretty damn good too, man.
Yeah, man. I think there's something to be said for strength of schedule impacting your overall rankings and just inflating your performance. But at the same time, like Tyreek Hill's on pace for like 3,600 yards. It's something insane. He's averaging like 170 yards per game. And honestly, like I don't want to get too lost, but AJ Brown, he's having a very similar season.
Oh yeah.
If Tyreek Hill wasn't having the season he was having, AJ Brown would be the talk of the town, right?
Yeah.
So like it's just it's a weird game, but yeah, I mean matchup matters. But at this point, you got so much confidence in your offensive system that I don't know. Like we're 7 weeks in, so this is the 7th game of Tyreek Hill literally busting everybody's ass. So maybe they just have the confidence to keep it going.
So one thing I wanted to point out here is average offensive snaps. If you look at Miami, they're averaging 65. You look at Philadelphia, 75. What does that tell you? Well, Philadelphia is slowing things down. They're running the ball more. They're creating longer drives. Miami is scoring right off the bat with these giant, big, huge plays. So obviously we're going to do, this is a Sunday night show. I just wanted to point this out in the very beginning. We're doing our truncated, shorter version because Sunday nights it's hard to watch an hour-long episode. So this will be between 20 to 30-minute episode. Most of this will be us building. So, the obvious thing to talk about here is Jeff Wilson. So he's coming off of IR. We, coming into this year for best ball, we kind of, there was a three-headed monster in Mostert, Wilson, Achane. Who's going to be the guy? And, you could have argued at the beginning of the season that Jeff Wilson was right in the mix to be the guy. He got hurt in preseason. This is his first game coming back. What can we expect from Jeff Wilson in a game like this? They're going up against it's a tough matchup for them, like run-wise. And if you look at some of these ranks, the run blocking for Miami, they're ranked 21st. This is one of their worst metrics here for Miami. They're run blocking. Now, they are the number one run team in the league, which is kind of funny. The run blocking sucks, but they're the best run blocking team. But going up against Philly, they're the number one rush defense. So what are we expecting out of Jeff Wilson in this game? Like, is there a chance? I know he's $200 and I know he's like a free square, but we don't know his role. Like, how many carries, how many touches is he going to get? Is Ahmed going to get those opportunities? We don't really know what his role is coming back in the very first game. How are you treating this, dude?
I mean, right now, I think the easiest way to treat it is just he is a free square. I mean, I think we want to be very clear about that to anyone watching, right? Jeff Wilson is a guy that you want to play $200. Like, he should probably be a mainstay of all your cash builds. You're running a single entry, you probably should be in those. But I think when you're getting to the large field GPPs, like, this is a guy that probably is going to get 30 to 35% ownership, and that's just off of like initial projections. I mean, as we get closer to lock, this guy could easily end up being 55, 65% owned, right? And I think because of his price, you really have to consider what lineup constructions are possible with that $200 guy. Like, you might have to start treating him like a $3,500 guy or a $2,500 guy, leave salary on the table, because goddamn well everybody who plays Jeff Wilson at captain, for example, is going to jam in every high price stud.
Yeah.
So if he's 5% owned at captain, I'd say 3% of the lineups are going to be the same lineup. So yeah. I mean, it's just a very specific slate we have to pay attention to. And to Cody's point right here, this slide next to Osimo, Debo Samuel, he crushed.
I remember
but this isn't a Debo type player, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he let's not overemphasize what Jeff Wilson is this team. One of the things that he is I mean, he's a running back that can garner usage. He struggles with speed a little bit. He's not as fast as Mostert and Achane.
Yeah.
He can get going, but I think he ran like a 4.6 or a 4.7 40 at his combine day, and it really impacted his what he was. So again, I normally we wouldn't spend too much time talking about a guy like this, but at $200 and a guy who's going to be 35 to 40% owned, like, he is going to make or break the slate. It's unfortunate, but that's where we're at.
If you look at some of these numbers here, run blocking, Eagles ranked number 2 behind Minnesota, which is kind of funny. Minnesota number 1 in run blocking with a sucky run game. Pass blocking ranked number 5 and 6, both of these teams. Pass rush ranked number 5 and 6. So this is a very this is going to be a good matchup, man. Like, I don't see a whole lot of holes on either of these teams. If you really think about it, though, the one thing we know that can be successful in this game is the passing game on both sides. Now, to me, if the Eagles can get a lot of pressure on Tua, this game could really be impacted. We know what Tua is all about. Like, we know he's incredible. We know he's an MVP candidate at this point. But if they can put some pressure on him, if you look at Tua's number, passer rating under pressure 48%, and his passer rating clean 128%. So that's interesting to at least mention. When it comes to some of these matchups here, if you look at, this is a little bit weird to read, this graphic here, but it seems like Miami's run defense is not looking too hot in this matchup. You see that minus 43 there. So it seems like Philadelphia's run offense has a little bit of an advantage here. And the pass offense for Philadelphia has a little bit of an advantage as well. And if you look at these matchups here from cornerback to wide receiver, everybody, for the most part, has a good matchup. Even looking at Braxton Berrios has a pretty decent matchup. So what are you looking to exploit, man? I think AJ Brown to me is like, for the Eagles, is probably number one. I mean, you could argue that Jalen Hurts is right there too. Do we have to pair both of those guys together? I don't know. What are you thinking matchup wise? Like, what are you trying to exploit here? It seems like DeAndre Swift is in a kind of a good spot, even though he hasn't looked too hot the last few weeks. He's clearly the number one guy, and that's probably the best matchup to exploit when it comes to ownership, right?
Yeah, man. So I think DeAndre Swift's a great place to start, and the reason is because just again, everybody, like you didn't even need to look at it from a matchup perspective. Everybody is starting with Tyreek Hill. They're going to AJ Brown. They're going to Tua, and they're going to Jalen Hurts. Like that's the core of everybody's lineup, right? So DeAndre Swift could easily just get slept on just because of the studs that are available in this game. So I think one of the interesting ways to build a unique lineup is maybe to fade one of the quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, for example, and go AJ Brown and DeAndre Swift as your primary exposure from Philly. You can do the same thing, DeAndre Swift and Devontae Smith. But I like DeAndre Swift in this one. I think it's also a great way. Like we talk about this pretty consistently, but this is when good coaches really get involved, right? This is when you should try to run the ball as much as possible, get as much RPO action as you're going for Philly. Keep Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle off the field. You don't want him to score? Don't let him play football.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Yeah, control that time of possession. Let's get into our injuries here. So Lane Johnson, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, Jalen Carter, Darius Slay, all off the injury report and expected to play. That's big news. Obviously, we have Jeff Wilson Jr. coming off of injured reserve. What do we expect from him? Who knows? Reed Blankenship is out. Bradley Roby's out. So Blankenship being out is kind of a big deal. Something is worth mentioning. Xavier Howard is questionable. So there's some guys that we need to keep an eye on. Now, Jalen Ramsey is not going to come back for this game, but he should be back maybe next week or the week after. They're easing him back in after that injury. Anything jump out to you injury-wise here? It looks like Eagles are relatively healthy, man, minus Reed Blankenship.
Yeah, I mean, Reed Blankenship's probably the biggest one for Philly. I think an interesting one. He's not injured, but Miami did just acquire Chase Claypool. He's pretty cheap, so he's a guy that'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on, see if he's active tonight. But just for stuff like this, I don't think we have anything too shocking. Obviously, Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith kind of being questionable or whatever. It's interesting, but I think they'll be fine, right? That Adam Schefter tweet. Look, I think hop in the Discord. We'll talk about this. This is something we're really going to chop up, right? We're going to have football all day Sunday afternoon, so we're going to need to stay plugged in anyways and just see who's active and inactive for the game.
Yeah, definitely join that Discord, guys. Also, for our Monday night show, we're going to record that tonight. That is for members only. If you click down the join button down below, $3.99 a month, you get Monday Night Football shows, full breakdown shows every week. Help us out with that. That'd be awesome. And obviously join that free Discord. All right, let's just get into building, dude. I think most of the show is just going to should just be us talking about building, because there's so much to talk about here when it comes to roster construction and how we can get different. The last thing we want to do is have the nuts line up and split it with 1,000 other people, because honestly, I think those are the type of numbers we're going to see tonight. We're going to see so many of the same builds. So we're going to have to get a little bit more creative than we usually would on a showdown slate, which is kind of scary. Let's start building. Let's try to look at our top sort of single entry, like $50 to $100 single entry, with like less than 1,000 people. I want to build a lineup with that, because those are some of my favorite contests. So who are we starting out with when it comes to that? Is this a Tyreek Hill situation? Is it Jalen Hurts? I mean, AJ Brown is a nice price. I think more so for tournaments. Or do we say, screw it, let's put Jeff Wilson and then jam all the top dudes in? With a single entry, maybe we only have to get different in one spot as opposed to getting too crazy. So where do we start here for the single entry?
So single entry, I don't think you need to do Wilson and captain. If you're playing like a double up or 50-50, I think Jeff Wilson and captain is probably the safest way to go, because you don't give a shit if you tie with, that 40% of the field, as long as that 40% of the field's on the top half.
Yeah.
For single entry, I think we probably should start with Tyreek Hill. I think we're going to be forced to consider a guy like AJ Brown, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I think we start with Hill and just throw in Wilson off the bat, right? I don't think we're fading him in an SE.
No, definitely not. All right, so Wilson's going in. Let's throw him right in. And by the way, just double check. We got 2 Wilson Juniors on this slate, so be careful with that. Jeff Wilson.
And if we accidentally build with Cedric, just know that we mean Jeff.
Yeah.
We have no interest in Cedric Wilson with Jeff Wilson available.
All right, so we got to do both quarterbacks here, right? For this? Or,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at 2 offenses.
Both quarterbacks and see if you can throw in AJ Brown. This is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, you can't.
Right. This is why I think you have to throw AJ Brown at the captain, is because it's the only way you're going to be able to get him and Hill in the same lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of scary to not have a pass catcher for Hurts here. I feel like maybe you could do I like DeAndre Swift in this game, but that is also a little risky. And now you're punting in this last spot. Although, Olamide Zaccheaus isn't a bad option. But guess what? I mean, back from the dead, we've got Julio Jones signing with Philadelphia. We don't know what his role is going to be. I don't even know where he's going to play. Like, are they bringing him in to play on the outside like he's done his whole career? If so, well, who's sitting on the bench for those snaps? Is he coming in and playing some slot? Are we seeing some Larry Fitzgerald later in his career situation? I don't know. If so, that decreases Zaccheaus' role. I'd rather just not even mess around with Julio Jones at all in this game. Maybe like in a Millie Maker type situation, throw him in the flex and hope he gets a random touchdown. But in this situation here, look, you got Boston Scott, you've got Zaccheaus, who's interesting. The guy that is popping out on a lot of the sims is Braxton Berrios. I mean, he's the number 3 dude in Miami for the best offense ever. So you always have to consider a guy like that, and he's 2,400. But I'm not liking where this is going. Let's take Tyreek Hill out. You want to go to Jalen Hurts at captain and see what that does?
Yeah, let's try it.
All right, Hurts at captain. Jeff Wilson, let's plug him in right away. Let's go Tyreek, Tua. We can get to AJ Brown, but you can't. DraftKings knows what they're doing here. Even though they screwed up with Jeff Wilson with his pricing, somehow it's still working out. We can't do AJ Brown. Look, Devontae Smith is fine. He's been a little bit hurt. I think we're starting to see a clear difference between Devontae and AJ Brown as far as who's the number 1. I do think at any given game Devontae can go off. I don't think I'm putting him in my cash lineups though, or my single entry lineups. Right. So is this a Waddle situation? Do we want to get Mostert involved even though it's a bad matchup? Probably not. So where do we go here, dude? Like, this is going to be difficult. Where do we go in these last 2 spots?
Go back to DeAndre Swift.
That could be the way to do it. 2,100. We're not going to get to Braxton Berrios, though, unfortunately. I mean, Durham Smythe is $1,600. He just doesn't. And he's on the field all the time. He's just not getting involved. I mean, 4 fantasy points per game. Zaccheaus here. I don't love getting 2 dudes that are this cheap because we just don't quite know what Jeff Wilson's gonna do. If he puts up 5 fantasy points, that might be enough. But I can't have another dude putting up 5 fantasy points. I need all the raw points here. So,
right.
Let's go down to AJ Brown here, dude. Let's do it. I know that Tua is there as well. We could try him. Let's just try AJ Brown just for the sake of seeing the difference. So let's jam in Jeff Wilson. Let's go Hill, Hurts, Tua, and see what that does. It's $800. So we're in a similar weird situation, but now we've got 4 of the best players in the entire game in our single entry build, and this is where you throw in a Boston Scott or you throw in some random dude. Or Cedric Wilson Jr. even. This is tough. We're gonna have to spend some time in the Discord today trying to figure out this cash build and seeing where we're going here. This is a situation to me where probably I pull 2 out. I don't know. Is that crazy?
I don't think so. I mean, pull out 2 and put in Mostert, or I don't know. I mean, who else do we feel comfortable with on Miami?
Let's put in Mostert. If we're pulling 2 out, let's put in Mostert. But that doesn't really do much for us. We get Zaccheaus or Smythe,
So I wouldn't mind Smythe, but again, that's not a single entry lineup. That's something I'd play in GPP.
No, for sure. So let's just try this Jeff Wilson at captain and just see how easy this is and see what everybody's going to do. All right, 5,700. So now you get either kicker, which by the way, the kickers are expensive again. 5,200 for Sanders, 4,800 for Jake Elliott. So you throw a kicker in here. This is a 4-2. You could do that, or you could go 3-3 for this. We got Jeff Wilson Jr. at captain, Hill, Hurts, Tua, Brown, Elliott. Everybody and their brother is doing this. Like, everybody's doing this. So if you are doing this, maybe the best way to do it is go down and get Berrios and leave 3,300 on the table instead of the kicker. You know, that would be my suggestion, even though, you know, it's not going. This lineup is not going to be popping in any of the optimizers or the sims because you're leaving so much damn on the table. And Berrios is not going to medium project as well as any of these kickers. So we know what it takes to build with Jeff Wilson at captain. That's interesting. Don't know if I'm going to do that in cash, maybe. But let's build some tournament lineups here, dude. Let's start getting weird. We're going to have to make some tough decisions here. So these dudes with the raw points, like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Hurts, even with 2, you know, we can get 2 rushing touchdowns out of him. You got A.J. Brown. You got guys like even Mostert and Waddle. Like, there's so many dudes on this slate that can go nuclear where you absolutely need them at captain because of that raw points. Who are we starting with? Who do you want? You want to start with Tyreek Hill and just see how impossible it is?
Yeah, let's do Tyreek Hill. I think for GPP, you really got to consider fading one of the quarterbacks.
Yeah, you
to
do.
Be honest with you,
do. Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna throw Tyreek Hill, like if you're gonna have one of the wide receivers at captain, that might be the quarterback that you think about fading, right? You got Tyreek Hill. You're gonna capture a lot of the offense that way. He could have 3 touchdowns on 180 yards, and nobody would be shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's fill it, right?
I think we go Jalen, AJ Brown. I think that's what we start with here.
I just think AJ Brown is, you know, and look, we know Philadelphia's weakness. So in a game like this, they could, you know, we could see Tua throw for 350 yards in this game. So It is a little scary to leave him on the bench, but we're gonna have to make tough decisions. We can't play everybody. Where are we going now? Do you want to do a non-Jeff Wilson Jr. lineup here to start, or do you want to do that second?
I mean, let's see what we can even get comfortable with Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? So this is another thing to consider when you're building with Tyreek Hill at captain. Is Jeff Wilson going to be in 90% of those lineups?
Yeah, it's true. Could be. So maybe we go Mostert here without Tua.
Yeah, throwing Mostert.
I know it's a tough matchup, but the dude can get involved out of the backfield as a pass catcher. But look what we're dealing with here. We're screwed. $800.
Yeah.
You're right back to Jeff Wilson. And you're back to Boston Scott.
Jeff Wilson and Boston Scott. Like, that's it.
That's it. So let's get rid of Mostert even here. So now we're looking at 3 of the top dudes. That's all we can afford. We're going to have to go middle range.
Devontae Smith.
All right, let's try it. 7,400. Still screwed. Still got to get Jeff Wilson.
Yeah.
So now we got to go into this kicker range, I think. And even that is a little bit expensive. Let's put in... Do you want to put Jake Elliott in this lineup, or do you want to go like a 2-4 potentially with Hill and Sanders and then stack in 4 Philadelphia guys?
Let's go Sanders, because I just don't know who else we like from Miami.
Yeah. All right, so we got 2 spots here, 5,400. For whatever reason, some of these defenses were popping in the sims a little bit, but I'm not going to build with the defense here. I'll probably have a little bit, but I'm not super interested. But now we got to go down to Berrios probably here, or Zacchaeus, Smythe. We got to get weird if we're not going to play Jeff Wilson. Because look, if we put Jeff Wilson in, we can get to another kicker. We can get to Gainwell, if we wanted to go that route. But I don't think it does a whole lot for us. I'd rather just not play him in this particular lineup. But we're kind of stuck here. Berrios. Yeah. Now this is turning into maybe a 3-3. Eagles defense, Smythe. No, I don't like it. So let's go down to Hurts and build with him for tournaments here. Is there a situation where we've talked about this a lot, where Tyreek Hill at 12K, he only puts up 15, 16 fantasy points only. And he just has a below average game and he doesn't make the optimal because he costs 12K. Is that something you're looking to play with here? Maybe we can play with a lineup without Tyreek Hill and maybe go Waddle. Waddle's been hot lately.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks, but these are the 2 teams that you can absolutely consider the wide receiver too. So I'm all for it, man.
So
the one thing to consider is Hill and Brown. I think they're more likely to score more than 20 points in a game than they are less than 10. So just be mindful.
No, for sure. So Hurts at captain, AJ Brown, Tua, Waddle. That leaves us with 3,700 total for 2 spots. Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson and Braxton Berrios. Which actually, this is not a terrible lineup. I'm kind of comfortable doing this.
That's a 2-4. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It is kind of nice. It's just, we don't have Tyreek Hill, so that immediately makes us a lot different. But Jalen Hurts is going to be 20% owned in the captain. And how many lineups out of those 20% of lineups? How many of those are going to have Jeff Wilson in the flex? Like 95% of those. Mm-hmm. It's just too easy. All right, let's go to AJ Brown at captain, dude. This might be my favorite captain option in this game. I'm going to spread myself out. I'm going to try to get as many lineups as I humanly possibly can that I can afford, hoping to get over 100. And I'm going to have 15 different captains probably. I'm going to have a ton of different captains this week. But I think AJ Brown will be my highest exposed. So what do we do with an AJ Brown captain? With Hurts, he can kill you in the rushing game. So if we get 2 brotherly shoves into the end zone, you're going to have Jalen Hurts. And arguably, you'll probably have to have him at captain. So I know that we faded Tua in that Hill captain situation. I don't know that we want to do that here. I don't know. We got to get Hurts, right?
Yeah, go for it, man. I do think that Hurts is fadeable. Like, I think you can capture Philly with AJ Brown and DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be doing that too often.
No.
Jalen Hurts is just if he was priced at 12K plus, then I think it's reasonable to consider fading him. But 11-4, hit 1 touchdown and 60 rushing yards could fuck you.
Absolutely. So AJ Brown and Hurts. Let's just put Jeff Wilson in here. It's just too easy. It's just too easy. Let's try Hill,
Tyreek,
and Tua, and then we're right back into this. This is what seems
Boston
to me.
Scott.
What seems to me like is going to happen is you're going to have a lot of lineups with Jeff Wilson and then a punt, like at least a Berrios or a Boston Scott or Cedric Wilson, a double Wilson lineup here. And I'm not super comfortable with any of that, to be honest. But that's kind of where we're at. Do we pull out Tua in this lineup?
Yeah, actually. I mean, what happens if we put in Mostert? I mean, it's really not freeing up all that much. I think we're back to
about $800. So this is Smythe, Zacchaeus. I'd probably go Zacchaeus, but I'm not loving that. Like I said, you're gonna get a punt and Jeff Wilson in a lot of these lineups. Where are we going now? You want to go mid-range with you want to go DeAndre Swift? You want to go Mostert? I think people are going to be sleeping on Mostert a little bit because every lineup is going to have Jeff Wilson, or not every lineup, but a lot of lineups are going to have Jeff Wilson Jr. And how many people are going to be willing to play Mostert and Jeff Wilson? I think you should play both of them. So let's do that. Let's put a Mostert captain and let's put Jeff Wilson in the flex. You want to try that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Jeff Wilson. Now, is this a situation where we fade Tua? I mean, he absolutely can throw passing touchdowns to either of these guys, but we got to make tough decisions. Maybe we fade Tua here, or maybe we fade Hill.
Yeah, let's just go Hurts and Brown. Let's start there, I think.
All right, and 13K. We're kind of in a good spot. Like, we're gonna have to go mid-range, but I think we're okay. But we're probably not gonna be able to get Hill. We can probably get Tua.
What if? Okay, this might be a little crazy, but what if we just went down to Waddle and see what we can do with the rest of the salary?
Let's try it. 5.1K.
I know it's kind of crazy to fade Hill and Tua, but
yeah, it is. It is. Mostert captain, Jeff Wilson Jr., Hurts, AJ Brown, Waddle, Elliott. So you're seeing what we're running into, man. This is tough. Imagine if Jeff Wilson Jr. was not $200 and DraftKings didn't completely screw up.
Right.
Can you imagine that? All right, Ellie, so what'd you learn? Obviously, you guys need to jump in the Discord. We're going to be building quite a bit. We also do have that YouTube members private channel inside of our free Discord that we'll be sharing our core builds. We'll be sharing some of our single entry builds that we're going into tonight. So what'd you learn, dude? This is tough. I personally don't want to hand build a lot of my lineups. I'm going to rely on setting as many rules as I can and trying to get different using SaberSim and trying to crunch out as many lines as I can and get diverse. Where are you going tonight? How are you handling it?
Yeah, I'll be hand building for sure, man. These are the slates I like to hand build for, especially when $200 guys are viable. But no, look, I think what we learned is Jeff Wilson could end up being closer to 60-75% owned. I mean, it's just not possible to build with studs unless you're just willing to put him in every single lineup. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. Like I'm going to be very nervous, but I think you can consider a couple lineups without him.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting play. Is maybe you say screw Jeff Wilson, and you just by doing that, man, I feel like yes, your lineups, your median projections on those lineups are not going to be as high, but you can utilize all the salary, and you're probably not going to be as likely to be duped. But it's going to be tough. You're going to have to fade like 2 of the top studs, and you're going to have to go mid-range on the last like 2 or 3 spots. And that could be weird because there's not a ton of mid-range guys that I like in this game. So join that Discord, throw us a like on this video. Let's get us to 50 likes on this video. We appreciate you guys. For those of you who are YouTube members, we'll see you for Monday Night Football tomorrow night. See you later.